Welcome to episode 6 of SchezzWho, folks. Thank you for joining me, Conrad SchezzWho, as I'll sit down right here and interview a great guest, State Senate District 18 candidate Tony Goodwin. Remember, SchezzWho is brought to you by first the wonderful Andrea Dixon SchezzWho, my wife who created the channel. She's awesome. I love her, and her greatness inspires me forward. I also want to shout out Charlie Roy over at Southern Volkswagen in Chesapeake because he'll get you that used car that you need right now. With an economy as pricey as ours, you need a good deal. And Charlie Roy at Southern Volkswagen Chesapeake will find it for you. And don't forget Ellen's Homestyle and Barbecue, two great locations in Hampton Roads, one in Virginia Beach and one in Portsmouth. Great food every time. Now I want to go right on to bringing on my guest, Tony Goodwin. He's running for a state Senate district covering parts of Chesapeake and Portsmouth, including the part of Portsmouth that I live in, and he's on right now. So I'd like to begin, sir. How is your Wednesday?
Wednesday's been busy and it's getting closer to the November 7th deadline. So we're what we call that final countdown.
Excellent. Excellent. That final countdown, it always brings up so many great memories for me. It feels more rushed, but exhilarating at the same time. So as long as you get that exhilarating feel, that's pretty good. I'd like to begin with sort of a softball Portsmouth-based question, but actually it's football here. Norcom football, and it's relevant to the district because Norcom's right in the district. The Greyhounds could win the rest of their games and finish 6-4. And they would not be playoff eligible due to a playoff fight last year with Phoebus. So I would like to just hear your brief opinion here. This seems wrong to me to announce this with 3 games to go. And I don't hear anything about happening to Phoebus as well. So what gives? Do you have an opinion on Norcom and the playoffs?
Well, first of all, Norcom is an excellent school when it comes to its athletics. You know, just as important as the school of Churchland High School as well. So Portsmouth has 3 great high schools, but Norcom seems to have a very, very good athletic program, and they know how to get it done. So I'm looking forward to seeing Norcom come out on top again. It might be a little too early to predict, but at the same time, too, I have good confidence in the Greyhounds getting it done.
Well, I believe they probably very well could finish 6-4. I think they're 3-4 now, but they had a gamut of really strong out-of-state teams. And of course, Maury is like the best team in the state right now. They had to play him, and so I think they could win out. Yeah, go Commodores.
Well, my wife's a Commodore, so I have to come along and be fair to all.
Oh, good. So shout out to the Maury Commodores over there.
There you go.
Speaking of Norcom's homecoming is this week, and it's a big event, big party coming up. Are you heading out there?
Well, it's pretty unique that our my office is right here on High Street at downtown, and we're going to have the parade come right by our front door. And I'll probably get a chance to see through the fence, but we were working hard out in the district and making sure people know we're out there. I know that field and that game is going to be very well packed, just like Churchland's was last weekend as well.
Just make sure that you have as much fun as you can. Make that as exhilarating as does running for office does this time of year. All right. Now, earlier this year, there was a firehouse primary, which had to choose a Senate District 18 candidate for the Republican Party. So sort of walk me and thusly the viewers as well through your inspiration to walk into that firehouse primary. How did the whole process work out?
Well, Conrad, it was really a whirlwind. I ended up getting the phone call and had been testing the waters probably for close to 4 months before I ended up getting that phone call in April to say, would you be willing to serve? And I said, let me talk to the wife, the daughter, and family and make sure everyone was on board. But we took the bull by the horns and started off at the end of April, and by June we were getting our name out, and the campaign was starting to take shape. June 10th was that firehouse primary down in Chesapeake, right there in Deep Creek, kind of center of the district, and so we felt really good and confident going into it. Come out with 80% of the votes, and here we are today, facing our challenger from the Democratic primary, which was on June 20th.
And that is going to lead me into the differences between what you went through in the firehouse primary and what you're now going into in this general.
Correct.
Because, as I put it, the firehouse primary and the general election are two different things, two different electorates. One is all Republicans, one is kind of small. The other is a large whole Senate district made up of Chesapeake and Portsmouth, a mixture of both. The voting record so far for this area seems nearly 60 to 40 Democrat, and a demographic breakdown is about 44% Black, 43% white, 7% multiracial, 2% Asian, and 4% other. So, does your message that you went into on that firehouse primary sort of shift now because you're speaking to a wider swath of people?
Well, Conrad, growing up in the Hampton Roads area, from Western Branch all the way to the ocean front, born in Portsmouth and come back home when I married my wife in 2000 and to raise our family. I feel like we are in a district that is the center of Hampton Roads. It's now defined by a smaller landmass as it used to be, and given the circumstances and the makeup of this district, we talk to just about everyone. I have a saying on the campaign trail that this is probably going to be a pivotal election in the Commonwealth, mainly because it's going to be a vote based on the character of the candidate more so than the party anyhow. I'm offering new ideas, bringing together my professional my professional career in real estate and commercial real estate and economic development, and just have seen a need for things to be done better, specifically in Portsmouth. Chesapeake is a totally different ballgame, and obviously we're gonna contribute to both in making sure these two communities or two cities are actually blended together well. And we like to build bridges more so than walls these days.
Good. I like how that message sounds, and I want you to touch a little bit deeper into the message if you can for my next question. But
Sure.
here's a bit of a catch. I don't want you to mention the governor because we're going to do that a little later, and I don't want you to mention Louise Lucas just yet because we'll get to that in a second. The message, if you were talking to someone new without mentioning them, what would that be?
As to who I am, or
A combination of who you are, what your message to them, and why you want to represent them would be.
again, it's very clear. Working in this community for well over 25 years, professionally, as well as serving in the community on boards and commissions, all the way from the business association to the Chamber of Commerce and the Portsmouth Board. I also have served as a board member for the Oasis Social Ministry, and then as a lead Hampton Roads alumni from actually back in 2020. I really bring to the table a new vision, a new idea that I think everyone is looking for. Again, bringing together these communities and making them one. Now that Chesapeake is of course from the redistricting has made it a different breakdown, and creates a new opportunity for everyone to see these communities come together. One thing I can say for myself is I understand that there's lots of challenges that we are faced with. Crime is a big issue, both in Portsmouth and as well as across this Commonwealth. And I think we need to come up with ways to combat crime that is, quite frankly, centered around a lot of our youth that need to make sure we protect them in every way possible to give them a brighter future. And of course, education, having a young daughter in high school here in Portsmouth, we firmly believe in the public school education, but we also firmly believe that we are part of her school career. And as she goes through school, we're there every step of the way. That being said, I think there's some room for improvement to where we offer studies that are given to all students. Career technical education is a trend or a buzzword now these days, but quite frankly, I grew up in the time where we did have shop classes in our schools, and it gave opportunities to all students that were not bound for college, but of course gave them skill sets that they could learn and get a good job right out of school and not have to worry about figuring out what to do next once they graduate. So I want to basically bring together again a community that is in the heart of Hampton Roads, making both Portsmouth and Chesapeake working together, as well as, more importantly, making this region competitive with regions outside the area.
Excellent. Now I want to sort of dive into a little bit more specifics, a phrase association, if you will, with some
Sure.
political topics, messages, and names. Now is when we can touch on those things I wouldn't touch on earlier. So, what does the following mean to you? And if we could refrain from viciousness, not that I sense from you that you are like a vicious type of candidate anyway, I like that. But let's start with Glenn Youngkin, the governor of Virginia. What does that associate to you right now in the moment?
Well, let's face it, I am the Republican candidate for Senate District 18. I associate with the party mainly for my conservative values. What I believe there is we need in this, not only in the local elections and also our state elections, our state parties, as well as the federal level. We need to come to more of where the center is, where most of the people are. I always say the American political system is almost like a pendulum. It swings far left and far right, and it's always going to naturally swing. If it swings one way, it's just as hard. It's going to obviously swing the other way. We need candidates. We need people that are in leadership roles that can bring it back down to the middle where most people are. And I think that's what I will strive to do, along with this governor while he's still in office, and get the programs that we need so desperately throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia.
All right. What would the phrase conservative mean to you?
Well, I'm a firm believer in family and obviously create a place where we can all excel. I'm a win-win-win approach type of person. When I do my commercial real estate, obviously I practice what I preach, but more importantly, it's all about community. Communities have to come together to get things done, and we need to be more in tune where the conservative values are important to all, and create a place where we can all thrive and quite frankly live without fear of crime, and more importantly know that we've got a good educational system taking care of our kids to get them into excel in the things that they want to do in life.
Now, this one's slightly different. What does Republican mean to you?
Well, the Republican is obviously the two-party system that this country's operating on. Sometimes creates a question of the ideals of both parties. The Democratic beliefs are obviously one way, that are in sometimes mirroring or separate from what the Republican beliefs are. I think the Republican values are true and quite frankly fall in line more of the conservative basis. Moderate or middle ground is also shared between both parties. So I feel like I would be that type of candidate and at the same time too senator that everyone would be proud to have them represent them in Richmond.
Now, I was about to go to moderate. You touched on that, so I can skip that one. What does
Sure.
Democrat mean to you?
Again, a separate set of ideals by individuals that are associate with the Democratic Party. Sometimes that you have different levels. I think there's more desire for people in both the Democratic and Republican Party that fall in that moderate, that middle ground that I'm always talking about and trying to get everybody back into, because that's where everybody's at. There's very few people that are just far right and far left, and I think that we really need to look at how we can stay connected to our constituents here in the Commonwealth as well as in Senate District 18.
Now, you have mentioned that in many ways you are conservative, and I am about to mention I, in many ways, am progressive. So if you could, what does progressive mean to you?
Well, progressive is let's face it, the word is obviously growing and moving forward with new ideas as well. it's more of a, I guess, taking a chance in a lot of ways, where conservatives usually feel more comfortable in the comfort zone of moving on a slower pace. But I think there's room for improvement in all aspects of these definitions that you're referring to, because I think, again, we just have to understand that it's we the people, not the individuals, and everyone all has to be represented by a group of people. Of course, in this case, in the Senate, 40 different people that are representing all of the Commonwealth equally, as well as making sure that we're moving forward to the future.
And I started by asking your opinion on the current governor. So, how about your opponent and the very specific race that you're in, Senator Louise Lucas? What is your impression?
Well, I will say I'll reflect basically what I'm hearing out on the campaign trail. A lot of people have sentiments that says 32 years is long enough. Results are definitely something we need to look at. I applaud her for her efforts over the years. Things most recently that many people just remember is obviously we have a casino. I say the jury's still out. I was one who testified for her in 2008 at the General Assembly, supporting casino legislation, but only in a way that was actually a tourism-based type program. That being said, riverboats were my choice, and I told her on the General Assembly floor, I said we should have gone that way because the I-81 corridor doesn't have a river big enough for riverboats. But we knew that would be a draw that would bring tourism dollars into the region and also, more importantly, into Portsmouth. But it failed back in 2000, and I think that was 2011, and was brought back. And we have a casino obviously in the middle of the city. Not necessarily, again, the jury's still out for me. I know it's doing its thing and making money for both the city and the state. But again, I'm optimistic but cautiously. Again, going back to other things that Senator Lucas has done a lot of things, and done a lot of things that are good, and also a lot of things that have not necessarily made too many people happy. And I'm hearing that on the campaign trail. So I want to make sure that I answer those questions as much as possible. And I'm not a person that runs a campaign on the negative side. Never will, never have, never will. I'm all about making sure that people know that I'm here to give them new ideas, fresh ideas, and focus on what's important. Obviously, crime, education, and making sure people have an opportunity to thrive. So economic development is a huge part of my campaign, and also my beliefs in making sure we're all working on all cylinders. The region is made up of multiple cities and counties, and when one city is failing, i.e. Portsmouth, because I see it every day, then we need to make sure that this city is actually running on a better with a better chance and better hope and future, so the region can also operate and be competitive.
All right. Now, those are a few issues that you've been able to touch on. There are a few that I would like you to speak to that are more important to me at the moment. I happen to be in this district of yours. So let's give them a shot here. I live in the West Haven area of Portsmouth, right? But it's most of your district will actually include Chesapeake. I think it's 60-40 in terms of how much of Chesapeake versus how much at Portsmouth. And Chesapeake okayed a plan to cut early voting locations of 2 precincts that are within minority-heavy communities. Cuffy and Camelot are, according to David Washington and the Virginian Pilot, the black heartbeat of Chesapeake. And now, personally, Conrad's opinion, I don't think it was a good idea to cut those 2. What is your opinion, as that'll be Chesapeake? I'm not sure if they are within your district, but I would like you to speak to it if you could.
Yes, well, just to give you a little brief of the district and how large it is, it does go from probably the West Norfolk Road area down in Churchland, down into all the way down into Chesapeake to the Deep Creek Canal Bridge on George Washington Highway or Route 17. And then from the Suffolk Chesapeake line west of Western Branch all the way to the Virginia Beach Chesapeake line of Indian River and Norfolk Highlands. It is a large district, 150 some odd thousand voters in the district. And understanding that Chesapeake took an effort to make sure that the early voting had an opportunity to reach all corners of the city, in not only just in District 18, but also in District 19 for the Senate race, which of course is the whole southern half of the city plus Virginia Beach, or parts of Virginia Beach. With that said, the 5 locations starting on Monday will be the Major Hillard Library on Old George Washington Highway in Deep Creek, which actually is more of a central location, ironically, where we had the firehouse primary. The Russell Memorial Library in Western Branch on Taylor Road, which services not only the northern Western Branch and part of Churchland area, but also the Jolliffe Middle and areas around the southern, or basically the Western Branch of the Elizabeth River. Add to that, the third one, of course, is the Central Library. The voter registrar's office is also going to continue to stay open, and that's it, I believe, right? So the Coffee Center, I did question and say what was, in fact, actually talked to someone from the voter registrar's office just today about if the Coffee Center was actually part of the plan, and they said based on track record in the past, they haven't had enough voters, or they haven't had enough attendance to justify the precinct to be open in the early voting time. So they've made 5 locations. Again, the Russell Memorial Library, Major Hillard Library, Central Library. I'm missing a 4th one. Where is it? And then the voter registrar's office, but I'll think about it in just a minute. It was no intention to make it not available in the demographics of a Black neighborhood. That it was just a matter of numbers and how many people have attended in the history in the past, as I've been told, and to have it open for 6 days, starting on the 23rd, and then again the last week of early voting, is far more than what Portsmouth's offering. And I'm not obviously knocking Portsmouth for just keeping the voter registrar's office, but they haven't opened the Churchland Library, and being at both polling stations during early voting, I can say that the attendance is lower than normal at both locations. But yes, people are coming based upon the geographic area where they are at. And what's available to them right now. Again, the voter registrar's office at 411 Cedar Road, and then the registrar's office here at City Hall in Portsmouth.
All right. On to the next important issue for myself.
Sure.
I commute from Portsmouth to Virginia Beach every day and then back again. My wife commutes from Portsmouth to Newport News and back again. And as sort of a double-fledged question within this question, where are the jobs in Portsmouth which are so good and plentiful that we don't need to commute? And why are these tunnel tolls still eating us alive?
Well, yes, the tunnel tolls is a conversation that I can have from here, and probably write a book on it. But anyhow, I'll answer the first question about the jobs. Go Virginia is a program that we're basically identifying the job growth in the region. This region, of course, is fueled by what we call the 3-legged stool. It's military, ports, and tourism. Those are the 3 major employers. Really close by to 4th would be, of course, the medical industry as well. But knowing that there was a lot of studying done about 5 years ago to say that we do not have enough jobs, technology jobs that are available to our youth coming out of college. And with all the four-year universities that we have here in Hampton Roads, that's an unfortunate situation to have. So there's private sector jobs that have gone. I always talk about when someone's talking to me on the campaign trail or when I'm speaking to a civic league, I'm talking about legacy jobs that have been lost in this community, Portsmouth specifically. At one point in time, we had anywhere between a half a dozen to a dozen manufacturing jobs in the private sector in the food industry. The most recent that we lost was the hot dog production facility out on on Airline Boulevard, where there were 400 jobs at the drop of a pin, completely moved out of the area and into North Carolina. And why? And that's the big question. Why? Is it policy? Is it driven on the fact that we didn't have a good workforce? In fact, I know we had a good workforce. There were people there that would probably have, their parents and uncles and aunts that all had their kids and nieces and nephews in there working, and it's a legacy type job that we need to get those back. We need to get our economy rolling to where we bring jobs back, that people can actually have living wage jobs and not have to commute or not even have the jobs available to them. Believe it or not, Portsmouth, of course, has more endpoints, basically people coming into the city to actually work because of the military, with the Naval Shipyard and, of course, the Naval Hospital and the Coast Guard base. But given that's what we're depending on, of course, as one of our major employers in the city, short of the city government itself. But I think we can do a lot better job with technology. We are on the cusp of being a very strong region when it comes to fiber optics and having access to the transatlantic cable that's coming into Virginia Beach, and it's going to encircle the entire Hampton Roads area. And of course, each city is doing their own individual ring for better access points for new investment, new industry coming into the area. And I think that's it's going to take some time, but I think we're on that cusp of where we need to start really headhunting for these new companies to come in and take full advantage of that opportunity. And then the other big part of the conversation is energy. I applaud Senator Lucas for putting in the programs for wind energy and having a repurposing of the PMT or Portsmouth Marine Terminal to be a laydown yard for the windmills that are going to be put on offshore. I think it's important that we know that the technology is there, but we need to make sure we are good to making sure we follow the trends and be ahead in the private sector and know what to expect. But we have a lot of opportunity for that as windmill farms are being installed and placed up and down the east coast of Virginia, as well as the east coast of the United States. We are right in the middle, and we can take full advantage of that. So the jobs are coming, but they need to be coming with more intent to give living wage jobs more so than service jobs that we see sometimes today.
Definitely would appreciate more hardy jobs.
Sure.
You were born at Portsmouth General, a hospital which no longer exists. The regional jail is closing, and Portsmouth wants to sort of convert it into a new Portsmouth City Jail to replace the outdated one that's near downtown. But how about a new hospital, which is capable of being excellent for birthing? Currently, I'd have to go to another city with my wife if she's in labor. How could that issue be addressed on the state level?
Well, it's funny you bring this up, Conrad, because I think you may remember this as a conversation that I had back when I ran for mayor in 2020. So yes, Portsmouth General is no longer here. In fact, it was the birthplace of not only a lot of Portsmouth natives, but also it was the start of the Children's Hospital of the King's Daughters, or the King's Daughters Hospital, before it went to Norfolk. So we still, of course, have the Naval Hospital now. We can't forget that. The Portsmouth Naval Hospital being a fairly large facility, of course, serving the military and Maryview. But going back to 2020, I made a suggestion that we needed to invest and look into possibly creating or at least have a discussion about the possibility of bringing a new medical facility in the center of the city, closer to the Victory Crossing area, where we have ample land. In fact, spoke to the company who actually still controls those properties right there beside the Victory Crossing Shopping Center, and to see what the possibilities were to make that available to a hospital organization. And knowing the position of where Maryview is and how close it is to, of course, the Norfolk Centera Hospital, it's kind of like we talk about in the commercial real estate business. Everything has rings around it. How close is it to another facility, or how close is it to a competing business? And that has a tendency of causing some issues when it comes to the amount of services provided. So when I threw it out there to see about what that would look like to service more of course, of the central portion of Portsmouth, also take into consideration that the city is bisected by a train and rails coming out of PMT, which causes some issues when it comes to ambulance services. But the biggest part of that was the proximity to the northern section of Chesapeake, whereas they do not have access to, the Chesapeake Regional Medical Center is way down on Battlefield Boulevard, which is also just right at the bottom edge of this district now. So that fills the gap for the northern section of Chesapeake. And then the wish of Bon Secours was to develop more medical needs out in the Harborview market anyhow. And I think that's still a desire by Bon Secours. But yes, we did talk about that idea about bringing more of a central location. In fact, it was the folks at Riverside that I had some conversation with back in 2020, and they did decide to choose to build a new hospital facility, but out in the Smithfield market, in the Smithfield area. So they're servicing that area here very soon with a new hospital.
I'm curious also how reliable a Goodwin vote or policy proposal would be on the side adjacent issue of Black maternal health care, as that's going to be important to me as well.
Sure. Well, I think, Portsmouth is known for a lot of firsts, and some of these firsts are not as good, such as obesity and diabetes. And unfortunately, this plagues some of our Black communities that are just not necessarily have good access to health care. And I think you're absolutely right when it comes to making sure that we provide the best of the best and creating an opportunity where people know that they can go and have good health care for their family. Portsmouth just invested and had relocated the Portsmouth the health center over here on High Street, right near Peninsula Avenue. Granted, it's not a hospital, but it does service the needs of the community. It was relocated from over on 7th and Lincoln to a brand new facility right here on High Street as part of what they call the Innovation District right now. And that's a big push to develop more healthcare related offices and services right there on High Street here in downtown. With that being said, I think Maryview is of course it's a private hospital. Of course, they have to make the decisions they have to do so they can be functioning efficiently, and it really boils down to the decisions they have to make. And Norfolk is the other option right now. So I would like to see us have more options on this side myself.
Good, I appreciate that. Now, I'm an opinionated person. I spend a lot of my days just commenting on politics online, so I'm going to wear that on my sleeve. I like progressive policies. I co-founded and am the treasurer of the Virginia Beach Progressive Caucus. I helped create the Community Action Team, which is an organization focused on Black empowerment and holding politicians accountable for failing to engage in improving Black empowerment. So we created a palm card specifically for state candidates to support on about 5 issues that were important to us. So let's begin with the first one. Would you seek to accelerate the Virginia minimum wage? And by accelerate,
Accelerate.
we chose raise it pretty high it, till we could get it.
So what you're saying, exceed it, accelerate it more than it's already programmed to go up now?
Yes.
Well, I think, the cost of living and inflation obviously has a big impact on everyone's pocketbook, and I really think there is a little bit of a contributing factor to where the cost of course, labor and workers that are actually creating more costs in the retailers or manufacturers or whoever's employing them is being passed on. That's kind of helping. It's kind of unfortunately contributing to the inflation factor. I hate to see when we do have an increase in minimum wage that the cost of goods and cost of services are going up again and again and even faster than even this minimum wage increases are happening. So I think as a small business owner as well, I'm conscious of it, and I think it's important. I think what we really need to focus on are finding that we have more living wage jobs available to people, to where they can move in from, they can start in service jobs and things of that nature that get them a stepping stone into the next position, and or move on to a higher paying position themselves, for, like I said, legacy jobs or technology jobs, things that we're not already offering in this area, and grow the economy with better private sector, and not to be so reliant on the military. I'm not saying the military is bad, but at the same time too, we need to do a better job in the private sector, where these jobs are creating livelihoods and good retirement programs and opportunities in that respect. So I would favor making sure we get more of the living wage and obviously legacy jobs, so as to where the minimum wage might not necessarily need to be accelerated, but encouraging people to move to a better position and get the experience they need in the lower paying jobs, and move right on up into management positions, and also these legacy jobs I continue to talk about all the time.
Now, the 757 Battle Cash, which is us, the community action team, is regional. We like to look at Norfolk stuff, Chesapeake stuff, the peninsula as well. Norfolk had, the past couple of years, had a sort of increasing amount of food deserts, with a couple of needed parts of the community that are grocery stores closing down and leaving some communities in a food desert. So one of our planks is, could Virginia politicians seek to end food deserts by expanding food pantries and distribution centers?
Well, this is right up my alley when it comes to commercial real estate and what happens to consolidations of retailers, and more importantly, grocery stores, and what's available to the communities that surround them. Some areas are now these days, retailers and grocery store operators are unfortunately making decisions to close and shutter stores in areas where crime is gone rampant. I posted a study on my Facebook page saying that it is getting to the point where the crime and theft inside these stores, either internal or simply people coming in and stealing from the store, is a cost that they cannot bear anymore, and so it's increasing. Let's face it, the cost of the goods that people are buying. So in an area that probably can't afford it the most, already you're now having to increase the cost of goods because of theft. Someone has to pay for it, and unfortunately, it is always comes down to the customer. When it comes to I've been working hard to try to find and identify an ideal location for a grocery here in downtown, in Old Town Portsmouth, more so than what we have is Food Line. Before Food Line was here, it was a very extreme desert of lack of services that were available to this community. But I can say that there's still a need, and I'm still working hard to find it either as a mom and pop grocer. I will be offering in my store right on High Street, the small essentials when I believe at some point in time here, the Dollar General in downtown will be closing. So I'll actually fill that need, hopefully in the next 3 to 4 months when they prepare to close here at the end of the year. But identifying these through programs at the state level and being able to assist and incentivize retailers to come back into areas that can serve the needs of the community is what I intend to do on a regular basis, because quite frankly, this is what I do on my professional career.
Now, I do appreciate that you personally want to help out on that issue.
Yes.
Because more people, we want to see that happening, but also people who seek to represent in a state function, which would mean votes and policies that they could suggest could expand those opportunities, as you just said. So we would like the idea of a politician entering in with that goal in mind. So again, we would appreciate that. And I do want to have, because I have a comment now on the video, a follow-up on the previous plank regarding wages. So let me bring that up here from Andrea Dixon. Of course, what is a livable wage for a single person? And how about for a person with 2 kids?
Well, putting an exact number on it would be kind of out of my purview. I think that everyone, I have to personally live within my means. In the commercial real estate business, I work on commissions, and when I have a dry spell for 6 months, I have to prepare for it when it comes around that I don't have the personal income coming in, so I make do on that. But I really think that the living wage is making sure that people are able to live comfortable and have their housing taken care of, either it be a mortgage or rent, which of course everyone is always looking to try to, I'm sure, get into home ownership, especially when you have young families. And I want to make sure that people obviously know that there are programs and services out there. Affordable housing is what we always talk about as well, and making sure there's plenty of that available to young families. I'm a big firm believer in workforce housing. Since we've had the Wodo Group actually open a facility here on High Street, on County Street County Street in Effingham. What a wonderful facility, and they're getting ready to open a second facility because the first one filled up so fast. So there is a need. Those are people that are actually living, working and living in a facility that's comparable to the incomes that they receive, open to families, small families, as well as individuals. But I feel like the overall goal is to make sure that we have plenty of opportunities and job opportunities available to all the residents of Hampton Roads, as well as here in District 18, which is what I'll strive to do, to make opportunities available for investors and also companies to come in because of the services and incentives that we provide.
I would also like to provide another follow-up question
Sure.
from Andrea as well. Let's put that up on the screen. What will you do to encourage companies for adequate compensation? The key word here, I guess, is being in the position of the state senator. How do you want to encourage other companies beyond yours to expand compensation? So according to The Intercept, America's productivity gains in recent decades should have translated into a rough minimum wage today of about $24. And of course, Virginia is around 12 is the minimum right now. So going into the mindset, what might a personal goal be on just spurring that activity to raise it themselves?
I think about when you used to hear when you're talking about budgets, you either use it or lose it kind of thing. We have incentives scattered all over this region, Portsmouth and Chesapeake combined, where businesses can come in and actually get wage grants that are available to them through either the Enterprise Zone, which is a Virginia program, or a state program. Historically underutilized business zones, a hub zone, which is a federal program. These are tools that are used by real estate professionals and economic development departments to attract new businesses that can do that. and create the jobs that are paying the $24 an hour. The biggest problem is that there's not enough using them. I hate to say it. The incentives are there. They've been there for years, and I wish we could get more of them out there to them. Sometimes, though, the incentives are not enticing enough to overcome some of the government regulations that doesn't allow for the business to come here. I still question some of the businesses that we've lost. Like I said, Gwaltney, and it was because they were looking for a more modernized facility. But I think at the end of the day, it was probably based on the machinery and tool tax that they had to pay on their equipment, and quite frankly, the cost of them doing business here was much more higher than they had over in North Carolina, where they ended up moving. So I'd say that is one of the biggest things that needs to happen, is to make sure that any new businesses coming in or existing businesses that are here we can be flexible in making sure we retain these businesses that can create these jobs and create a workforce that people can enjoy that living wage that they so desperately need sometimes.
And I know a little earlier in the show we touched on how Portsmouth is trying to get a new Portsmouth City jail due to the closing of the regional jail.
Sure.
So our next plank hinges on incarceration, in fact, and whether or not it would be a good Goodwin vote for eliminating incarceration for minor nonviolent drug offenses.
Well, nonviolent offenses, I think, has already been a lot of that has already been taken care of with some of the laws that are on the books right now. Decriminalization of marijuana has obviously been something that has been talked about for years, and many other states have done that. I do think there is still a education piece that needs to go with it. Some people think it's completely legal to smoke in public spaces, and it's still not allowed that way. But at any rate, I think incarceration has to be used in a way that we make sure that our communities and our society is actually in a safe place where people are not fearful of living in their neighborhoods and walking on their streets. And going back to the issue of crime, I think it's appalling to see that our crime rate has soared this year. I think the numbers are starting to come up to a point where we're actually per capita, we've got more violent crime that's happening here in Portsmouth than in some of major urban areas or even urban cities. And that's a wake-up call that we need to do a better job to make sure that we're proactive and not necessarily reactive. Our police force needs to be fully staffed, and to make sure that we do not see this epidemic of crime continue and get back to where people can feel comfortable and live comfortably in their communities, and not worry about having to answer the door to a police officer that says either your son or daughter or grandson or granddaughter have been shot and killed in our city streets. I think that's something I had to, unfortunately, my parents had to live through themselves when I was a victim of gun violence in my high school job down at the beach, where you would think it would never have happened, but it did. And of course, I lived to tell the story that I just don't want to hear that ever happen again.
Housing is also very important to the CAT team, and we would like a policy plank of spurring the support of new development where there's a 25% minimum of low-cost housing in new developments, and that is going to be something that is zoning related as well. How would you approach that as a future state senator?
Well, again, as I talked about before, incentives are there. They're just not being used, unfortunately. A program such as that is something called the New Market Tax Credit, which is usually tied to qualified census tracts to build better housing in communities that either they don't have the housing at all. In fact, downtown Portsmouth And where my office sits here on High Street is at the edge of that qualified census tract. And sometimes the regulations and government overreach hinders businesses from actually taking full advantage of those types of programs. And time is money, and I have to say with some certainty that again, I'm a professional in the commercial real estate business, and I know that you cannot expect developers to take things out and spend money and constantly keep pouring money in without knowing when there's a solution and I guess you could say a finished product at the end, without going through a lot of red tape. And red tape does have a tendency of causing a lot of good projects and a lot of good deals to go on the not even happen. There's a lot of things that get left on the sidelines. I think it's very important to make sure that development and things that are created for the betterment of the community is, again, I apply win-win-win situation, and that third win is always the community. So I'm conscious of protecting the investments and property owners' rights that are existing there, and make sure that everything blends in a fashion that makes sense for everyone. More importantly, what I'm assuming you're alluding to is affordable housing, and that's something that's desperately needed. We talk about it way too much, that we just need to get somebody in there who knows how to do it.
And our last plank that is important to the community action team that we would like candidates in the state office to have in their mind as they approach their job: fully funding schools with a robust and historically and scientifically accurate curriculum. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that you're alluding to potentially a curriculum that will make sure that all students have an opportunity, either them going to four-year universities or community college, or more importantly, trade schools.
But also, I would teaching of history, teaching of science, to make sure that it is as robust as we would like it to be.
Sure. Okay. Well, knowledge is power. There's no question about it. Again, I go back to my personal experience. Both my wife and I are products of public school systems, both in Norfolk and me in Chesapeake, and also in Virginia Beach, and understanding the importance of a good education. Our daughter being involved in public education, we are there every step of the way to guarantee she's going to have a good, solid education that she can work from going into her college years. And with that said, we want to make sure that all families and all parents have a seat at the table when it comes to making sure that their child's education is top notch and number one. When I say career technical education, it seems to be a buzzword now. And again, I think it's more importantly to look back and see where the mistakes were made, why it was taken out of our school systems, or decreased in a lot of our school systems. And I fear that it was just because of a budget cut. And now we're paying the price. Students there's a certain student that doesn't necessarily have college-bound tendencies, and they want to be able to go into a good working job. Portsmouth has a great dual enrollment program, and I believe Chesapeake as well. Chesapeake has a great career technical school down on Cedar Road that is teaching to about 500 and some odd students now, and can do so much more with a new facility. And I think there's an intent to make sure that is funded in a way that they can grow that campus, if not replace it completely, and make it more of a regional type school as well. I think they're actually seeing about 20 out of the 582 students. I believe they're seeing probably about 20 students coming from Portsmouth Public Schools going down there, and I think that's phenomenal to know that some of the students from another city, just like the governor's school does, bring students in from all over the area. and all over this region. So again, it's a great opportunity for growth and new possibilities for students.
And our last policy-based question of the night will be on the community action team. We have a measure of politicians who like to support the community's interest over the big budget interest of whatever city that they're in. We would like to translate that to the state too. We would like politicians in the state house who are more interested in Virginia citizens than on just trying to increase as much tax revenue as possible. On that vein, we're concerned about inflation right now. And some people might run saying that I want to cut the grocery tax because that'll help our wallets. But I also think it would be just as important to help the wallets if our utility costs are brought down. And you may have noticed I've been drinking out of a Dominion Energy cup, and Dominion Energy spends millions of dollars almost every election cycle to all over the state. And this is where corporate money comes into this. And they're a quasi-government entity. Your opponent has taken a lot of money from Dominion as well. And as progressive as I am, I want to point that out, that it doesn't balance. It doesn't seem like that is something that we should be seeing, is so much Dominion money flooding into candidates. And then we have higher Dominion bills. I think we could try to reduce that.
Yeah. Well, since of course campaign finance reports are basically public knowledge, it's just a click away, and you can see who is supporting your legislatures. I think utility costs are obviously sometimes are getting a little out of hand in some cases. Portsmouth has right now got a lot of people talking about the water bills and utility bills, and then you add on the stormwater fees and this fee and that fee, and on top of the taxes that are adjusting or going up. If it's not the tax rate that's going up, which it went down in Portsmouth, thank goodness, but then the assessments adjusted and made it basically balance back out. So it's frustrating to know, and I think the optics are fairly clear when you have big corporations contributing to campaigns, and let's face it, a campaign to run for office these days it's not a very inexpensive endeavor. I know that firsthand in two different races, but I have to say I'm pretty frugal when I do run a campaign. And again, I run a campaign that I feel that I can be proud of, and everyone else that I serve can be proud of as well. I don't really expect, nor would I want to accept campaign contributions in hundreds of thousands of dollars from one corporate entity. It just makes it look like you are being bought as a person or a candidate for favor in the future. And people, let's face it, people today are smart on this stuff, and I just don't think it's right. Contribute to your candidate the way you want to see your community be built. And if you feel like your candidate is telling you that we're going to do this and that, take it from the experience of what they've already done, and I think that's what's really important. What has a candidate done already that shows that they're willing to continue and do more with a bigger voice? And that's what I'm intending to do when I get into Richmond, because quite frankly, the trends and the policies of things that are going on in the private sector when it comes to economic development, there's a lot of room for improvement for Hampton Roads. And with the Senate District 18 being almost the heart of it, middle of the Hampton Roads market, we can do a better job and get ourselves more competitive for this region to be competitive with other regions throughout this country.
That sounds like an excellent closing of your message there, Mr. Goodwin. Would you like to give one last pitch for the viewers?
Well, I have to say we are in the middle of our early voting. Today is, I think, 15 more days of early voting, and then we go right into Election Day. I highly encourage anyone and everyone with the ability to be able to vote. Unfortunately, we're past your registration day, which was, of course, this past Monday. but I think there's plenty of room for opportunity for us to have a good win for Virginia right here in the heart of Hampton Roads. And I would appreciate your consideration for your vote come November 7th, and look forward to serving you as someone you can be proud of in the Virginia General Assembly.
And I appreciate so much that you came on tonight. So thank you again for coming on, SchezzWho, Mr. Tony Goodwin.
Thank you.
I hope you have a great night, and I hope that your election season is the most fun it's possible to be.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much, Conrad.
Thank you. Now, thank you, SchezzWho viewers, for tuning in, and I hope you like this video. I hope you subscribe to this channel, and I hope that you tune in for my next show as SchezzWho delivers more great content to you. Take care tonight.